I wish my room wasn't the same Elmo orange it's been since I was like 3 years old.
You can always repaint it.
Yeah, but I don't have a lot of time or money to do it.
There are a lot of great paints out there that cover very well.
So let's go find the best one. I'm Natalie Reese,
And I'm Dayten Wittenberg.
and we come from planet Earth.
She means we come from the Rainbow Clovers 4-H Club in Bremer County. We are going into 8th grade, and we go to Wapsie Valley Junior Senior High School.
And we're here to present today on paint coverage. We actually entered this in our junior high science fair this past March, and we're pretty pleased with it. You may notice that our board is set up a little funny. Why are these pictures only here? Why is there a graph? Weird words. We'll just explain as we go, but that was all for our science fair.
For this experiment, we were trying to figure out which paint brand covers the best in one coat. We were trying to do this to save people time and money and so that they can learn about different paints and what they do.
This brings us to this funny word, hypothesis. Hypothesis, the best way to explain it is it's basically a scientific word for an educated guess that you make off of research that you gather. So first we had to go out and find some research. We started online. We tried a few websites, but they weren't exactly giving us what we were looking for. We found some information there. So we went to some paint experts. We had saw an ad in the paper for Jack Hines out of Michael's Painting and Decorating in Waterloo. And so we went to talk to him, and he gave us a lot of good information and basically backed us up. And he actually sent us to another paint expert, Scott Hubrig from Pittsburgh Paints, who actually donated 1 quart of our testing paint here. And they basically confirmed what we had found out on the internet and gave us a little more information. Basically, paint is made up of 3 main parts: the vehicle, the solvent, and the solids. The best way to explain each one: the vehicle is like your liquid part of the paint. It's the part that makes your paint move. So we're going to pass that around for you to see. Different paints may be slower, faster, a little more runny, but that's generally how it goes. Make sure everybody gets to see that, please. The solvent is a big main ingredient in paint. It's really important. And an example of a good solvent or better solvent is titanium dioxide, which is actually like a metal. And a substitute, something that works but may not be quite as well, is chalk dust or calcium carbonate. We're going to pass that around for you to see. That is your solvent, as a reminder, just so you know. Big main ingredient. And the solids. Best way to explain it: I don't even know if this is painted, but if it is, you touch a painted wall or whatever's painted, you're touching the solids, because when you paint, your vehicle or your liquid evaporates away or dries, leaving your solids behind. So a very important thing in paint coverage is your percentage of solids, which is how much of your paint is solids. So to make our hypothesis, our educated guess, we had to look for a good solvent, such as titanium dioxide, and a good percentage of solids. So Dutch Boy
Had 47% of solids with chalk dust and titanium dioxide in it. PBG had 38% of solids with titanium dioxide in it, and Bear had 41% solids with titanium dioxide in it.
Dutch Boy had kind of an unusually high amount of solids, but that's okay. We might have picked this one because it had the highest percentage of solids, but it had calcium carbonate or chalk dust in it, so we didn't know what to think about that. So we ended up going with Bear with 41%. That's a really good amount of solids. Pittsburgh Paints, PPG, had 38, which is about an average percentage of solids, and we decided to make our hypothesis that Bear would cover the best because it has a high percentage of solids with a good solvent. And if you're ever out to find out that information, when you go to buy your paint, you can ask for what's called a spec sheet or information sheet, and that will be on there. Normally, years ago, they might have had it on the label, but They don't have room for that now since they added another language. But you can almost always find the solvent on there, but we have not ever found the percentage of solids. So this is how we tested our hypothesis.
To do this experiment, we primed 4 3x2 drywall boards. Then we painted a black X as evenly as possible in the middle of each of them. Then we left one out for the controlled experiment so we could compare how well each of them covered, and then we just compared them.
We have a little sample board for you to see here. We have them labeled as we did them, so we'll pass that around for you to see. So then we applied 1 coat of honey beige paint, which is your color right there. And we chose honey beige because it's not like a yellow that would take very many coats to paint over a black X, but does the job well for like a tannish color. And in all reality, you may not be going from a dark wall to a really light one. So if you are, it is probably a good idea to do more than just 1 coat. But for our experiment, we just applied 1 coat. And this brings us to like our graph area where we rated them. So here is our rating scale.
If it got a 1, the X is completely showing. If it got a 2, the X is covered in one place. If it got a 3, the X is covered in a few small places. If it got a 4, the X is almost halfway covered. If it got a 5, the X is just over halfway covered. If it got a 6, the X is starting to be partly hidden to the eye. If it got a 7, the X is partly hidden. If it got an 8, the X is hidden very well. If it got a 9, the X is just barely showing in one spot. And if it got a 10, the X is completely showing.
So after applying 1 coat of paint in each brand, we found that Bear came in first with a rating of
8.5.
It did a really good job, as you can see on the board. We were really happy with it, and we were glad that our hypothesis was right. And Dutch Boy came in second with
7.
And Pittsburgh Paints fell behind very closely with
A 6.5.
These two were really close, especially on the board. You can see that. It was really close. And on the bigger, we did a lot bigger pieces. It may have been even closer than it was on the sample board that we're passing around. But it was a little more obvious that Dutch Boy was just a little bit better than PPG. So we finally concluded that Bear came in first with a rating of 8.5 because it has a high percentage of solids with a good solvent. And this is what we want you to know. And we did record the prices. It just wasn't relevant to our experiment. But believe it or not, Bear was actually the least expensive. It was the most affordable. So it is a very good deal. And so if we bored you to death, this is what we want you to know. We want you to know that you can use Bear paint because it has a high percentage of solids, good solvent in it. And this is good information for people of all ages because adults maybe like to paint their house different colors, or a teenager may get the option to redo their room and they have to learn to budget effectively. This will just give them a good idea of what paint to buy. So I guess I should paint my room in Bear.
I guess we...
What colors do you think I should do?
Barney purple. Mustard seed yellow.
Funny.
Barn brown.
I thought barns were red. This concludes our presentation. If there's any questions, we will answer them now. Or if you want to come get a closer look at our board, we know it's kind of hard to see with all our information. You can feel free to come on up. Is there any questions or comments? That is a good question. How did we become interested or get on this topic? Well, actually, it was pretty much science fair's fault. We had to come up with a good idea. At the time, I actually moved into a new room in my basement, so it kind of just all tied together. That's how we came up with it. Yes, I did, and I used Bear. I painted it a light blue color, not purple. Any other questions? Hey, feel free to come up and look at our board, and that concludes our presentation.